All right, we're coming up close to the top of the hour here. Again, my name is Murph Krajewski. I'm the Senior VP of Marketing at Sharpen. I'm joined today, well, actually, I'm the sidekick. Rick Kasiba is the real show here. He's our Chief Data Scientist, and you have stumbled into or purposefully joined the nerdiest metrics-based webinar you're going to see all day. This thing is packed with metrics. Really good information about how to uncover really good performance management stuff that we've been doing at Sharpen with our customers, or just Rick's general experience in the field. So this is going to be great. We're right at 2 o'clock. Rick, do you have anything you want to kind of add contextually before we just dive into this thing?
No. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their afternoon today to talk to us about analytics and such. No, I'm excited to chat. Murph knows that I love talking about this kind of stuff, so I'm excited to talk more.
It's going to be great. Okay, so for everybody watching, we're going to go cameras dark and just focus on the slides, and then Rick's going to go, and I'll just kind of pop in with color commentary every so often. So away we go.
All righty, let me turn off my camera. All righty, folks. So again, thank you for taking time out of your afternoon. We're real excited to chat with you about analytics and such. Today, what we're going to do. Hey, Murph, do we have any rules as to questions and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, let's just say standard rules apply. There is a questions panel in the little GoToMeeting toolbar off to the right towards the bottom. If you have anything, just throw it in either the question panel or the chat window, and I'll be monitoring that. And if it's pertinent in the moment, I'll interrupt, and if not, we'll just hold until the end.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So today what we're going to chat about is we're going to touch on a couple of related but slightly different topics. We're going to talk about working from home or working from anywhere and reporting. We'll talk a little bit about agent self-monitoring through performance management. We're going to talk about real ROI associated with performance management. We have some really great stories to tell about it. We're going to talk about some analytics that you guys can do today that don't require a whole ton of work, doesn't require many systems. It just requires you sort of playing with Excel. And then we'll talk a little bit about agent sentiment. All righty. So what we have here is Murph put this slide together for me and I had a different cockpit. He had this cooler one. The idea here is, now that we have a situation where most of our agents are actually working from home or working part-time home, part-time at work, maybe they're working from the coffee shop, maybe they're working also wherever they want to be. It makes management really harder. I was actually chatting with one of our customers who actually I think is on this. One of the things that he actually said to me was, it's really important that I use my numbers, I use my dashboards and my reports to sort of figure out what agents are doing. He says they could be putting themselves on pause, running in the back, he's out west, running in the backyard, jumping in the pool, swimming a few laps, and then coming back and going back to work. It'd be nice to know, why agents are where they are and what they're really doing. In the olden days, we used to be able to just walk outside onto the floor, take a look, sort of walk around, ask a couple questions, wave to people, and you would know that what was happening in your contact center. If somebody came in late, you generally saw them come in late. Where now we don't have any of that intuition anymore, and we sort of have to work through our numbers. And so the idea here is, it would be really neat for management to have a cockpit, a set of reports and dashboards and tools, so that they can actively manage their workforce from their home office. One of the things about Sharpen, this is actually, there's a couple slides in here I just pulled directly from our marketing bundle. This is one of them. But the point here is that one of the things that Sharpen has that is really cool, and it's actually one of the reasons why I came to Sharpen in the first place, is that Sharpen has this really great data layer. They have this really easy way of getting to data and manipulating it and viewing it and building dashboards and building reports and all that sort of stuff. And so having this access to the data and having it be so simple is really cool. It's great for our customers, but it's also great for us because we get to monitor our performance and watch it and see when things are going well and when things are not. That's all I really wanted to say about this. But so anyway, let me do a little introduction here. So earlier in this year, pre-COVID, we sat around some of the smarter folks here at Sharpen and I. we went to a whiteboard and we said, okay, if we're going to build our customers some decision support tools, things that can help them manage their agents better, what would we build? What, ideally, what would we have? And so we went to a whiteboard and we got our markers and we drew a bunch of graphs. We took pictures of them and basically had a portfolio of reports that we would like to be able to create. And then I went out and I talked to a bunch of customers about this and saw what they liked, what they didn't like. They had some other ideas which were even better. It was really cool. It was we did this little tour, and our customers gave us some great ideas and great feedback. So what we did then is I took an intern, and the intern and I went into one of our customers. We had permission from one of our customers to actually build this report that we would turn into a presentation. We ended up giving it at a specific conference one time a couple months back, and he gave me permission to use these going forward so that I could share them with other folks like you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a couple things. Right now we're talking about work at home. So let's talk about this is some of his reports that he liked. His name is Aaron Feinberg. He's a really good guy, really smart guy. And these are some of the reports that he uses at his company. It's called Centricity. And like I said, he gave me permission to use this. So one of the things that he was focused on was when I'm managing my work at home people, one of the things I would like to know is why they're going on pause. So he has a running report. He has a dashboard that's for all of his agents. And it's keeping track of by day, I guess, could be for, actually this is over a course of 3 days, why agents are going on pause. This particular person went on break twice, went to a huddle twice, training twice. He has all these different things that are happening. He's keeping track of their time and such. This is really neat. And this is even more important as our agents are virtual and you can't see them anymore. Another report that he used, this is actually pretty interesting. His business is sort of an outsourcer. It's a little bit of a blended kind of view or blended kind of company, but there's a big outsourcer component. And one of the things that he always keeps track of is by queue. Each one of these is a different queue. What are the service levels? How many abandons do they have? It's basically the queue he calls a queue performance report. But it's keeping track of the various queues. And it's important for him because every queue represents a different customer or maybe a different line of business within that customer. And so it's something that's very important to him because he has different service level agreements by queue. And this is something that he needs to, he's sitting down in his home office watching all of this stuff all the time. Now this is where we start getting really interesting. This is actually queue performance by associate. And he has this person, Aaron Selby, who has worked on these particular queues, and he's keeping track of the handle time. The service levels isn't as important because the agent can't affect service levels, but he's also got other sorts of performance metrics to the right here that I didn't slide over for. And he does this by agent. Now, what makes this interesting is that there is different performance by queue, by agent. In this particular case, he's got an hour handle time plus for this particular queue for this particular agent. Now, I don't know if this is normal. I don't know if this is a very complex set of calls that this Aaron has to take. But what's interesting about it is that it does point to something that we actually back here at Sharpen started talking about, is that you can keep tabs on the relative performance of every agent on every queue and every channel. And by doing so, you can actually use that to do better routing, better training. In this particular case, one of the things that you might want to do is you might want to say, okay, Aaron Selby, let's go off and let's work on these particular types of contacts because let's assume, I don't know if this is the case, but you're slower on this than the other agents who are taking this type of contact. And at the same time, we probably don't want to feed as many of these types of contacts to Aaron. So you can use this kind of analysis to help you figure out where your agents are doing well and where they're not doing well. You might find that some agents are really good at chat. These are all things we know, that there are agents who are good at these things. There's agents who are not so good at these things. But knowing that I have this agent who's not as good at chat but is better at phones, maybe I want to cue them slightly differently. Or maybe I want to train them a little bit more. But having this kind of information is actually pretty cool. All right. I'm going to change subjects again, and we're going to talk about performance management here. This is another one of those marketing slides. You can tell because it's much prettier than the slides that I put together. Well, by the way, Murph, did you want to say anything? I'm just rattling, and I forgot that you were here. So anything you want to say?
No, so I'm digging on these graphs or these reports that you're putting up. I was watching the chat windows and the question windows to see if anybody would maybe chime in on with a more contextual question. Haven't seen anything yet, but again, like if we're flying through these reports and it sparks a question, everybody just go ahead and drop something in.
Yeah, that'd be great. And also, if there's any way we can turn this more into a conversation as much as you can during this webinar-y kind of thing, that'd be great. Thoughts or questions or things that you think are stupid or things that you think are great, we'd love to hear about it. Okay, so let's talk about performance management. So we recently introduced a new tool to our system, and it's a very simple thing. Most of the time, if you want a performance management system, it's something that you have to go off and buy. Most platforms integrate into performance management tools. And we were talking about doing that. So we went out and we spoke with a lot of the performance management companies out there. And we heard something that was really interesting from all of them. And this is the thing, which is they said that they got 95% of the value of performance management by simply showing agents their performance relative to their peers. There's a lot of performance management systems or gamification systems will allow you to have, create little games. I can challenge somebody to perform better on number of calls handled or whatever it is that I'd like to, and then at the end of it, one of us gets coins, or you get to buy board shorts for your avatar or a little puppy for your avatar. There's all these things that people put in terms of, the gamification stuff, and a lot of people really like it. Again, back to the questions and comments thing, I would love to know what you all think. But what I heard from the gamification companies, the performance management companies, was simply showing them their data, agents, their performance in a real-time fashion will get you 95% of the benefit of gamification, which is interesting, right? So we walked away from that thinking, you know what? Our customers can still hook into a gamification system if they really want to, but what we'll do instead is we will go ahead and surface those metrics to our agents so that our customers can reap that 95% benefit just by having these little simple things up in front of them. So what we have here is we call this the beachfront property. Anytime that an agent is not on a contact, this is going to pop up, and it's just their main screen. And it's going to have their 3 metrics that management chooses for them. In this case, we have handle time. It'll show them what their handle time is relative to their goal, which is down here. It's a little blurry, and relative to their peers. In this case, they're 2nd out of 7. Wrap up time. In this case, active contact resolution, which is something I'll touch on that here in a second. The idea is 3 metrics. This is chosen by management. This is what is important to management. And then the agent sees it, management reinforces it, and hopefully we'll see some sort of improvement associated with it. I do want to talk about active contact resolution. It's really a cool metric that I don't know if we ever heard from somebody about this, but we were trying to grapple with the idea that companies wanted to improve their first call resolution. But an agent doesn't know whether the call coming in, maybe they do, through your systems, but they don't know necessarily whether it was the first call or the second call or the third call. And they certainly, their job is to make this call successful. And so what we have is a different metric. We're calling it active contact resolution, which basically says, if I chat with somebody, when I'm done with them, do they need to call back in within some time horizon? This current one is set for 7 days. but let's say we can set this for 3 days or 1 day, whatever you want. And so let's say I have it set for 7 days. That means that I don't expect the customer to have to call me back again at all. So 7 days is good. Or if I expect them to call back, but not very often, 1 day may be the thing that you might want to go with. And so it basically says, I get done with a customer. If they call back, let's say it's 1 day within 24 hours, then I did not achieve my goal because they had to call us back. If they don't call us back within that time frame, then I did achieve my goal. And I'm going to keep track of what percentage of the time do customers actually call me back within those the time horizon that management sets. So in effect, what it is this may be the 7th call that the customer has made within a 24-hour period. But if I'm the 7th agent and I took care of their problem, then I'm successful, where the other 6 are not. So that's what's different from first call resolution. First call resolution is a management measurement. It is it's something that an agent can't control, but it's something that management should be able to control. And one of the ways that management can control this is by measuring active contact resolution per agent. Okay, so this is the main screen here. This is kind of cool. This is the setup. The nice thing is, when you set this thing up, you just want this whole thing this process to be really simple. In effect, what you do is you choose the 3 metrics. This is a list. You choose what the thresholds are. You choose whether or not you show the agent rank. Some people don't. It's interesting. Some people, when we were talking to people about it beforehand, people were like, well, I don't know if I want to show agents their rank. But every one of our customers who've turned this on so far have showed the rank. And then you can choose what how you want to calculate it. We're choosing a rolling 7 or 30 day. We're going to add some other features to this in a little bit. Super easy to set up. And then management has a tool, a report that basically shows for all of the metrics that you have, what is the performance, and I can sort it so I can see who's first and who's last. And I can actually go through and when speaking to, for example, Matt Smith here on the left-hand side, I can say, hey, Matt, you're 4th out of 25. How do we get you to 3rd? Or whatever it is you want to talk. But either way, they know that you're looking at this information too. They can see it every day, and they know that it's important to management. Now think about that for a second. It really is. Performance management, I think, is much more important in the land of COVID or work from anywhere, simply because it's a reminder to agents as what is important. What's important to management. This is saying, if I do these things, I'm doing my job okay. So it's kind of a cool thing. Murph, did you want to pipe in at all? You good? Any questions?
Yep. Nope. I'm good. Keep going.
All right. Now, what I'm going to show you is I probably put too many of these in here, but I do want to show you some of the improvements we've seen. So this is a credit union that's based out in the West. The manager over there is a really, really smart guy. Very, high energy, real mover and a shaker. He was our first person to turn the system on, and he did a real good job of communicating. Now, the interesting part of the story is when he turned it on, he was the first person to turn it on. We found a bug, and the bug didn't show that ACR score. It showed a blank tile with ACR in there. So they knew that ACR was important. And then Matt started talking about ACR. And then shortly thereafter, we turned the tile on. But what was interesting about it is by having the reminder available to the agent every time they weren't on a call, what you saw is a huge improvement in first call resolution. In his case, he went from a 68% first call resolution up to 73%. This is one of his groups. Another group, he went up 6 percentage points. I love these quotes. We've got a couple of people who are pushing 85%. Pretty excited about it because they're crazy. They thought I was crazy for suggesting they could get above 80. I think that's really cool. But here's the real cool one, which is an agent himself said, I just have to say the numbers on Sharpen make me want to be better than whomever may be ahead of me each day. I can't believe I'm 8th on the contact resolution. I'll try harder. And this is what we're hoping to get. I want to improve. I want to be the best, which is really cool. It's really great. So first call resolution is not one of those metrics I thought that an agent could control so much, and I was surprised at how much they could. Let me show you some of the other ones. This one on the upper left-hand side, this is a large software company, and they're actually growing tremendously when we turn tiles on. Now, one of the things that you would expect that an agent can control is wrap-up time. I finish my call, I'm going to do my little bit of after-call work, and then I'm going to get back on a contact. And lo and behold, the day that they turned it on, they saw a major shift in wrap-up time. Boom, right then and there. This is what we, with both the previous graph, with this one, you see a huge shift on the day you turn it on. And here you see a huge shift on the day you turn it on. This is a change in behavior. They know you're watching. They know they want to be good. They know it's expected of them, and they do it. In this case, 20% improvement in wrap-up time. Now, you're not going to save a ton of money by just improving your wrap-up time by 6 seconds, but you can see this sort of behavior also in hold time and then in handle time. Now, I'm going to talk about this here in a little bit. This particular company was having there's a seasonal thing happening with them, which is they were seeing an improvement in handle time anyway. And you can see that it's an improvement of 12% of handle time. If I could take full credit for it by turning on these tiles, that would be great. I don't think I can take full credit because there was a trend already happening. However, looking at these components of handle time, you see that a good chunk of it, I mean, there is some of it is clearly due to performance styles because there was an obvious change in behavior here, which is neat. Now, this one on the left is interesting, which is if I just take an average from here to there, and then from the middle over, this is when they turn on, I didn't say that, but the line is when they turn on performance management. You can see that they were growing. They turn on tiles and suddenly they're flat and they're lower. This is really cool because again, it's showing that there is a change in behavior. Now, who knows whether it just so happened that we turned on tiles the day that there was a seasonal change, but I don't think so. It's just too much of a coincidence. But you are seeing a huge change in performance. This is in handle time. And this is in first call resolution. Now, I didn't have too much data beforehand here. We actually changed the definition of it so that the numbers would look weird. But we have a few days. This is sort of running along average, and then boom, you turn this on, and they see a huge improvement in first call resolution. This is all really neat stuff. The thing that I like about this is it sort of makes you feel good about our phone agents. That everybody wants to do well. Murph, there's a quote that we started using: a happy agent is one who knows that they're doing well and knows that other people know it too. And this is sort of what performance management brings. Now I'm going to show you two more. This is I probably should have taken a little bit more time with this, but I actually got these numbers yesterday. This was for a large financial services company. They focused on handle time improvement. The point of this, which is interesting, is they had 3 tiles and they told their agents, focus on this one only and don't worry about the other ones. And lo and behold, the other one stayed flat and handle time actually improved, and it improved by a significant amount, 8%. The vast majority of the calls, and the calls that they care most about, was in this El Salvador office, and that's the 11%. These minus 5% was actually an internal tech support office. This is really cool, but the point of the matter is by management saying these things, reinforcing it with performance management, lo and behold, you get an improvement. And then I'm going to show you one that
before you move on from that one, I'll chime in. I've been having a lovely chat on the side with Sonia, and she and I were talking about how they do like a daily huddle with their teams, and she kind of ties it to a whole sports metaphor. And I had actually brought this up as well because this customer, when we talked to him yesterday, was telling us about how they're using that agent surfaced, visible, important metric data to run their team huddles every day and stay focused. And this is what happens when they do that. So like you had said earlier, Rick, just active management, good communication, clarity, all of those things have real good effects.
Well, that's great to hear about Sonia's contact center, and it's absolutely true, and we have run into many situations where actually, let me go way back to that very first one I showed you, where we saw the improvement in first call resolution. I had actually he was the first person to turn the system on for his credit union, and I was watching handle time because I thought that was the one that you could affect. And so every day I'd go in and I'd look at his handle time and say, staying flat, it's staying flat. And after about, I don't know, 8 weeks or so, maybe it was less than that, or it had been less than a few weeks, I called him up and I said, his name's Matt. I go, hey, Matt, is there anything you can do to sort of, gin up interest in improving your handle time? And his response to me was, I told him not to worry about handle time at all. He says, I was more concerned with first call resolution. And then I went and looked at the data. I was like, oh, thank goodness I'm seeing some value here. This thing that we're working on really helped there. And lo and behold, it helped because he put so much emphasis on it. It was more of a management thing. And all of these performance management tools, software vendors will tell you it's software. It isn't. It's management. And Matt is a great manager, and he did a good job there. All right, let me show you the next one now. This one's going to be a little bit, there's a story to it. So this is a service broker, and lo and behold, we looked at this, we pulled this grid. Again, this is something that we looked at yesterday. We saw minus 23%. We're thinking, oh no, what's happening here? What is happening? So here's the problem. And let me just sort of, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Here we go. Oh, all right, here's the deal. Now Murph hasn't seen this slide, and he would have probably nixed it because it's a really weird slide, but I promise you I have some, there's a reason for it. Here's the deal, which is anytime that you're measuring anything, let's forget about performance management. Performance management is one of the things, is the thing that we're trying to measure here. But if you're measuring this performance management, you're measuring a new marketing program, you're measuring a new talk-off script, you're measuring all of these new things, and you put them out on the floor, and you want to check to see whether or not it's doing well. There's a problem with call centers, and the problem is that call centers are always changing. They're highly seasonal businesses. They're subject to massive changes. It could be changes in attrition. It could be changes in handle time. It could be changes in why people are calling you. It could be changes in we've hired a whole bunch of people. All of these things are going to mess with your contact center, and it's certainly going to mess with your A/B testing or your before after kind of analyses. So when you're trying to figure out whether something is working or not, the contact centers are really hard. And so let's talk about the graph on the upper left-hand side, or the little picture up there, time cost. The reason I'm so inefficient is analyzing whether strategy A or B is more efficient. A long time ago, I was working at the largest credit card company, or second largest credit card company in the United States. And we had a lot of agents, I want to say 3,000, 5,000 agents or so. And and we had a team, and it was a large team, maybe 30 analysts whose job it was. These weren't workforce management types. These weren't regular operation types. These were people whose job it was to simply understand whether things are working in the contact center, do analyses around programs. It was a collections group programs, and how to parse the lists, and how to treat customers when they called, and what to talk to them about, and all this sort of stuff. And we would sit there and work, we call them strategies, work on these different strategies, and put them out there and test them and see whether they're working. And the vast majority of the time, at the end of an analysis, we came back and we said, and the usual answer was, we don't know what to do. And the reason is because we spent so much time looking through every possible permutation of what could be wrong, or what could influence this, or why is this statistically significant or not. And then we just simply didn't make a lot of decisions. It was really a frustrating place to work. Oh shoot, I have a little tag on thing at the bottom. Anyway, okay, so that's the little thing on the upper right. Now I was reading an article by about a famous, he wasn't a fighter jet ace, but he was a famous fighter jet pilot. And he flew that little F-86 Sabre, I think, for a while. And he actually flew in between wars. So he never faced the enemy. He never shot anybody down or anything like that. But this guy would go, his name is Robin Olds, I think. And it's a long time since I've read the article. He would actually fly at 30,000 feet, and he would be at a specific point, and he would challenge anybody to fight against him. And if that person won, he would buy them the biggest steak and all the beer that they would want. If a pilot could beat him, and he would just be flying at this particular flight, you could attack him at any point, no matter where you were. You can be higher, lower, equal, coming at him, going away from him, whatever it is that you wanted to do. and he never lost a fight. And he had a strategy, and the strategy was really interesting. And the strategy was to act. It was make sure that you are moving faster than the other guy. Now, this isn't a great, not a perfect analogy, but if I turn, even if it's the wrong decision, if I turn, but I turn before the other guy is able to turn, if I can make my decision 5 seconds before he can, I'll win. And he always won. It's the same thing sort of with A/B testing and math, sort of. In that, it's really important that whatever it is that we do, we make a decision. This is one of those things. Even I've been a math guy all my life. I've been working on models and doing what if analysis and all that sort of stuff around call centers. In the end, you have to make a decision, and a lot of people will turn to you and say, "But you don't have enough data," or "But you don't, but." But the thing is, you still have to make a decision. Do I hire or not? Do I run this program or not? And when you're looking at those things, the trick is to take the data that you have, make the best decision that you can given the data that you have. So let's do that with that one person who has 24% reduced ROI. In other words, their handle times keep increasing. So if you look at this graph, you can see that they're coming in, and I spoke to the manager here, and she says that it's a seasonal, it's just a normal seasonal bit of business. We are growing, or our handle times are growing. And so if I were to look at this, I'd say, oh, okay, well, did we make any kind of improvement by turning on performance management? And so here on the left-hand side is before performance management, and the right-hand side is after. Well, the one thing that I think is really cool is that, again, the day you turn it on, you see a marked change in handle time. There is a shift here. And so the first thing I can do is I can say, okay, if I were to fit a line on the left-hand side, what would it look like? And it would show something like this. Then you say, okay, now what I want to do is fit a line on the right-hand side, and lo and behold, you get something like that, right? So again, we're trying to make we're in a changing environment. It's not a super clean piece of analysis because something's changing dramatically anyway. The question is, though, what should you do? And well, here's a little thing, which is if I were just to simply extrapolate this, you would see that had things continued to go, it probably would have been coming from this upper point here, but being charitable, this is the performance that I would expect on average to see, where this is the performance that I'm actually seeing. And the error gap in between is really, truly at least a picture of value. And so you would say from this, you might not be able to say, I'm going to management and saying, hey, look, we improve things 7% or 20% or whatever. What you could turn to them and say is, this program is actually working. Let's absolutely keep it going. So anyway,
you have to say that in a pirate voice. You can't put that on a screen and not do a pirate voice.
Actually, Murph, I had to look it up. But here be, here be pirates. So all right. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears again. Now, what I'm going to show you, or what we're going to talk about now, is some simple analysis that you can do, just simply by taking your performance on some metric that you'd like, and doing some, like I said, it's a real simple analysis. What I'm plotting here is on the x-axis, I'm plotting my agents. Each one of these is a specific agent over a specific time period, and I'm sorting them from best to worst. In this case, I'm talking about talk time. So this is from the fastest to the slowest in terms of talk time. And simply by plotting the curve this way, and I'm a big fan of graphs because the graphs often show you things. And one more time, I want to give credit to Aaron Feinberg, who let us use this data and did this analysis with us. What I expected to see when we plotted his data was I expected a curve that would have a few people here at the bottom left-hand side. It would go up to the mean, which is this orange line, and then would go across the middle for a long time, a lot of people right around the mean, and then would have a few people at the end. It'd be kind of like an inverted S or something. I don't know what that is. And in fact, we didn't see that with him. In fact, we saw a pretty good spread in performance, which is sort of interesting. But one of the questions that we had was, is it worthwhile working with this group to try to bring down their talk time of the folks who are, the poorer performer or the slower performers? So we did a little quick analysis, and the analysis is this, which is This little picture just tells us a couple things. So here we have the group average. If I were to take all of these people who were worse than average and make them average, what would the value be to my company if I could just have them hit the average handle time? And the value to the company would have been around 20% reduction in average talk time, which is significant, right? So if you are, actually, when I was working at that credit card company, one of the first things that they asked me to do was to figure out whether training was worthwhile. He says they spent a lot of money on training. Is it really truly worthwhile? And this is the kind of analysis that we did. So here what we do is the area under this curve, if you're into calculus and stuff, the area under this curve is actually what the value is here. In this case, it's 1.33 minutes or 20%, which is great. This says that this is probably worthwhile trying to get these people to move down the curve here a little bit and get to average. A couple things about this. One is, you're not going to get all of them. Some of them are just slower. Some of them are more methodical. And so you may not be able to get this value here. So but your upper bound is about 20%. Another thing that's interesting is to look to see who these people on the lower end are compared to the people on the upper end, right? If these are all your seasoned employees, or more of them are your seasoned employees, it may make sense for you to spend the time here just to get them to be more seasoned. And that may be something like, I can improve my operation tremendously if I simply sent more of the difficult calls to those people, maybe. Maybe if I have them do sit-withs with the best performers. Maybe if I send them through different kinds of training, or maybe if I simply show them what the best performers are actually doing. You say, you can be one of these people, but here's what you're gonna have to do. So if I can simply accelerate their learning curve a little bit, you're gonna see a big improvement, upwards of 20% of your overall talk time, which is, in contact center speak, that's a huge improvement. 4% would be well worth its weight in gold. 20% is knocking it out of the park. We did some other metrics. This was his handle time. I did plot it against a goal here in the upper left-hand side. So this is agent rank again, handle time. The point here is that the average is nowhere near the goal. What that says is either his goal's too low, which is what I suspect, or his average, or he has to do something to improve overall group performance. Here you have the opposite happening with wrap-up time. You actually have the agents who are performing better than what their actual goal was, which is just sort of interesting. Okay, I'm going to show you another fun one. First off, are any questions about any of this? Is this interesting to you guys? How many people have dropped off the webinar, Murph?
We did lose a couple right around the half-hour mark, so I'm guessing that's more of a scheduling thing than anything. Haven't had any more questions come in, but I am genuinely curious. Like, this, to me, feels like school, and I think the people who are still in are like eating it up as a lesson. So those of you who are still in, confirm or deny with the chat panel, and I'll let Rick know.
Yeah, you can put something in there saying, I'm so bored, something like that.
I'm getting some good stuff coming in already. Keep going.
Awesome. All right, I'll keep going. All right, now this one's kind of fun. Now, what we did here is we took Aaron's data. He had a very specific question, and it's one of the ones that we all sort of want to understand, which is the tension between callbacks or first call resolution or active call resolution and handle time. There's the feeling that if you talk to consultants, oftentimes they'll say, let them talk as long as they need to. And if you talk to call center managers who are responsible for a budget, they'll say, we want them to be as fast as we possibly can, but we want them to answer their people's questions. And here is an attempt to sort of answer that, which is, so plotting handle time on the x-axis and number of contacts on the y-axis within a 24-hour period. The thing that's important here is that Aaron's business is not conducive to callbacks. In other words, people will have a question, or they'll be working, at the end of the contact, there really shouldn't be a reason to call back. This isn't a process sort of contact center. So all the area that you see in the shaded background here, what those represent are your expensive calls. These are the expensive sets of contacts. The people on the very far right, these are just long handle times, okay? And the people over here on the upper left are the people who are just calling back a whole bunch of times. But I'm gonna move my mouse around this particular data points. This one was a relatively long handle time, relatively, but they called you back 7 times. within a 24-hour period. Now, the point here is, if you wanted to fix things in your contact center, the thing to do would be to listen to all 7 of these contacts, and you should be able to figure out as managers relatively quickly, is this, why is this the case? Is it a really needy customer? Because that could be the case, right? This person needs a lot of help and they're going to call back just to make sure, and call back and over and over and over again. Is this a training hole, or do we have a hole in our training when it comes to these types of contacts for our customers? So are our agents not well trained on this type of question? Or maybe we have a process problem. Maybe there's something that we're doing in our processes that force customers to call us back, or make customers think that maybe they should call us back. There's something off here. And so the question is, how do I go about improving? I'm pointing all over my screen here. But if you were to take a listen to a smattering of these contacts in your expensive area, this is something that you can fix, or you should be able to fix, we hope, by either training or fixing a process, or understanding that you've just got needy customers, and maybe doing something around making them feel less needy. And by doing so, you'll reduce your cost tremendously. Now, another question that he had was, this is the same sort of graph, this is a different group. This is Spanish calls. So on a Spanish line, he would have his English agents back up his bilingual group. And so what do I have here? The orange are the English agents. Now, one of the things that you noticed was that the English agents had much lower handle times. And he wanted to know why. He thought it was cultural. He thought maybe the Spanish folks, when they're speaking in Spanish, they tend to have a longer conversation. But when you look at this graph, what you find is that most of the callbacks were English agents who were backing up Spanish contacts. So it was this is my interpretation. What it could have been is a Spanish person calling, gets an English-speaking agent. They're polite and they hang on for the phone. They try to work through this thing, and then at some point they say thank you. They hang up, and then they call back. And because staffing is mismatched, meaning it's likely to bump back to an English agent again, they do it over and over again. And so this is one of those, this is a great question. In my head, and I don't remember if Aaron believes this to be the case, maybe it means that they need more bilingual agents at certain times of the day, which is kind of cool. Now, this next one's really interesting. My daughter is a a mechanical engineering student at Purdue, and she was helping us out. She was one of our interns, and she came up with this one. So I'm proud of this one because I didn't think of it. She did. What she did is she took the worst agents when it comes to handle time and saw what their callback rate was. This is interesting, right? Because you would think if I have a real high handle time, that's by definition bad. But what you find here is that that's not necessarily the case. It's not always the case, because they also had very, very few callbacks. Here you have a situation where just a few of the times where the people who spoke the longest actually had the customer have to call back because they've handled their problem. So really cool stuff. And you can plot this handle time against other metrics. So you can, CSAT or, other things. But the idea is that you're just going to look at the graphs and see if you can interpret any of this kind of stuff. Now, I want to show you one last little bit about this, which is we did look at in total of Aaron's data. We found that roughly what percentage is it? 7% of his calls were 4 calls plus. And if he could listen to those calls and try to figure out what's broken and fix those things that he can fix, you would see a decline in the 7%. And if I could reduce my call volumes by 4% or 3.5% or whatever I could get out of this, that's a huge win for my operation. Any thoughts or questions about this? We're going to switch gears again. Murph, we have anything?
Good side conversations, but you keep rolling. You're doing great.
All right. Okay, this is one last thing that he did. This is a completely different tack. So tack, yeah, I think that's the right word. What we did is something very simple. We took volume by queue, plotted handle time by queue, plotted handle time times volume, which represents the number of work hours, right? It's the number of phone hours that you're actually spending, and then applied to it a dollar, sort of a loaded wage of an agent. And what we can do is we can figure out over here who your most expensive queues are. Now, for his business, which is an outsourcer, each one of these queues represents a different revenue stream, but this is the cost of that revenue stream. We could also, I guess, I wish I would have taken the time to do it, is figured out what his actual revenue was per, and then we could have come up with a profit calculation as well. But what is interesting about this is by sorting all of these graphs by cost per month, what you see happening is you can actually find some queues that you might have thought were really expensive, but were a little less expensive than you might have thought. Like, for example, this queue over here, 3563, their volumes are relatively high, but since their handle times are so much lower, they don't cost you nearly as much as the queues to the right, the customers to the right. So anyway, no matter what, if you can always put dollars, add dollars to your calculations, you'll see some real benefit to it. All right, changing gears again. What we're going to talk about here is something that we're adding to our system. We should have it here we're starting it, I think, in the end of the third quarter, which is now actually. So we should be starting it pretty soon. And it's a very simple thing, which is we would like to provide a service that anytime an agent logs out, maybe if they go on pause, I don't know, whenever they're doing something, we're simply going to ask them how they're doing, right? In this case, how do you feel today? Or do I feel terrific? Whatever. They click it, they get out. Maybe they can add a comment or two, which is cool. But one of the things, it's funny, I came from a company that once a quarter would do a employee net promoter score. So they do this once a quarter. And it turned out to be, it was just a mess. You would get it. If your group did well, then you'd hear about it. If your group didn't do well, you'd hear about it. I once got an email from my boss saying, "Hey, I assume that this comment was yours. You want to talk about it sometime?" It's like, how in the world do they know these things? But so they become sort of political exercises where you don't want that. What you'd like to do is just keep a running view into your agent sentiment. Now, not only do we have, how do you feel today, but we're going to also add other kinds of questions like, so you can have a rolling set of questions that hit your agents, things like, what do you think of the Christmas party? Or do you think you have the tools to do your job well? Whatever it is that you'd like to ask them. We would like to keep track of sentiment plus a few other things sort of as a minor question. So we're going to do this, but let me show you why this is neat. So one of the most obvious things that you can do with this is you can keep track of agent sentiment by supervisors. So simply you can use this to sort of, in this case, turn to supervisor 4 and sort of coach them up, or let's say he's the supervisor that handles the night shift or the overnight shift. That's something you might expect, and at least you'd understand how each of your agent groups are doing. So this is something that you can keep track of. Another thing you can keep track of, and I really like this, is you can keep track of sentiment over time. Now you expect, and this is something that I've seen with all the calls, every call center I've ever been in, you sort of see this, which is there are times of the year when things are better and there are times when they're worse. And the trick is to keep track of them. So you might find here that we have a dip in agent sentiment here. People are not as happy in the middle here. Well, when is the time to fix this? It's not during that time. The time to fix it is over here on the left-hand side. This could be, again, a training gap. Maybe I don't train, we know we're going to be getting these types of calls, and therefore we need to train them on those types of calls to make them more efficient or make them, give them the tools necessary to do their job. It might be that this is our busy season and our agents' occupancy goes really, really high. If that's the case, well then, maybe this is the time to start offering them things around that here. Since our occupancy is a lot lower, we're probably a little overstaffed. Maybe we offer some time off or 3-day weekends or things, but preparing them for, we know things are going to get busy. We're going to do this. let you have a 3-day weekend, smattering of people, and then the weekend, then after the busy season, we're going to do it again. Things to get people to be okay with the busyness, whatever it is that you guys are more creative, whatever it is that you're thinking. But keeping track of it seasonally and looking at it is really important. And then I love this one here. This here is we're keeping track of service level against agent sat or sentiment or happiness or whatever you'd like. And what we're going to keep track of is how happy they are at different service levels. This is interesting in that if you've worked in workforce management, one of the things that you hear is that there is a natural occupancy you don't want to be above. That's when agents start taking longer on the phone. It's when they start burning out. It's when there's attrition and that kind of stuff. So when service level is really low, that means you're at a burnout. You're understaffed. The agents never get a break, and maybe they're not very happy here. When service levels are super, super high, they're not taking many calls, they're bored, they're sitting around, they're twiddling their thumbs. I actually was in a call center where they were knitting in between calls because they wanted to have really high service levels. And then we expect that somewhere in the middle, there is a natural happiness base. With that data that we're talking about collecting, I can actually keep track of this. I can keep track of how well everybody's doing by service level or by occupancy or something like that. And we can know what this number is. And it could be different by different companies and such. I just think that's a really cool piece of analysis that I've never, ever seen done. And once we turn this on for some of our customers, we'll be able to do it. And I think that might be it. That's it. What can you do today? Well, you can look into buying performance management. If you don't have our platform, you can buy a third-party system. If you do have our platform, you can talk to your CSM about just simply turning it on. It's just, you just toggle a switch and it should turn on. We should stack rank, do some of this analysis. Why don't we go ahead and download your agent performance through your systems. If you have Sharpen, again, you can use our insights system tool to help you with that. But simply look at the curve. That shape of that curve is actually really interesting. And then anything that you can do to have a voice of the agent would be really cool. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be in beta for our agent sentiment stuff here at Sharpen. And that's all I had. We do a series of CRM Exchange webinars. You can find us on you can just Google my last name and CRM Exchange, and you can find our next webinar. This one's going to be around what if analysis and models. We're doing some cool work around building accurate models. So listen in on that if you guys want. But if you have any questions now, I'd love to take them. If you have some questions later, please take down our email address. I love chatting with people about this kind of stuff.
Hey, Rick, we actually did have a question come in. I've been chatting on the side, and I've got one person who is struggling they're all remote, and they're working to find a way to identify call gaps and improve staffing needs to reduce hold times. And they're on kind of homegrown systems. Okay. Do you have any pointers of like data points they could look at or ways they could kind of pull data out into an Excel sheet or something to maybe close some of those gaps?
Yeah, a couple things. One is if you're in a situation where your abandons are too high or your service levels are too low, first off, it's a terrible place to be because it sort of feeds on itself and it makes for a much more stressful operation. One of the simple thing you can do is produce a report. Here's a cheap man's way of getting some sort of performance management is start pulling data on how everybody did this week in terms of handle time, and then have a conversation with each of your agents and tell them where they rank in it. You could say your average is this, the goal is this, and the best agents are around here. Simply doing that, and putting that focus. Right, I was saying management, like my buddy Matt there, is make a real difference. And so simply doing that kind of thing is probably really helpful. I'm sorry, the tail end of the question, Murph, it was gaps in call handling?
Gaps, they were trying to get gaps in identify call gaps, improve staffing needs to reduce hold times.
Right. So in effect, you have a few things, the few triggers. One is again, listen to those calls that are problematic. If you have people who are calling you over and over again, by all means, listen to them. Listen to your really long ones, and see if there are some programmatic or some systematic or some training things that you can do simply to try to shut those down. Yesterday, we were speaking to another smart customer of ours, Pedro, who said what they would do is they would analyze the calls and listen for areas that they can actually speed part of the communication off. So you say this instead, you can say this. Where you went and went through this process, you didn't necessarily have to go through this process. You could do this instead, and it would take care of the thing that the customer is asking. So that might not be optimal. So it requires a lot of work. This is a lot of work. So listening is probably really good. But the levers that you have available to you are, you can either lower your service standards, which is happening naturally anyway. You can reduce your handle time. And again, maybe showing agents where they are and what's expected to them is the simplest, most direct thing you can do. And you can also reduce your call volume somehow, maybe through your IVR if possible. So those are sort of the things you have that can bring your call or your service levels in line, or your band-ins in line. Anything else, Mark?
Nope, I think that was the only kind of question hanging out there that hadn't been addressed up to this point. And we got to thank you. You're quite welcome. So I'll go ahead and I'll wrap us up. We are going to make the recording of this available. We typically follow up Tuesday of the following week. So if you were with us live, thank you for joining us and for hanging out with us this whole time. If you're watching this recording sometime in the future, greetings from the past, I guess. Either way, Rick, thanks again for just a great look at the numbers and the data and how to translate that to make sense for real value. Yeah. Any parting comments?
No, I appreciate everybody taking time. I know I talk fast, so if you do have any questions, by all means, reach on out.
All right. With that, everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.
Take care, folks.